Hello, and welcome to video 5 of the reading of the book Charlotte's Web. We already read chapters 1 through 7 in our first 4 videos, so if you haven't watched those, I hope that you'll go back and watch videos 1 through 4 and read chapters 1 through 7 with us. This video is going to be just chapter 8 of Charlotte's Web by E.B. White with pictures by Garth Williams. Have you ever talked to an animal? I know I do. I talk to my dog, and my daughter likes to talk to our kittens. I even talk to my pet chickens. Have you ever heard an animal talk back to you? Well, in this book, Fern, the main character of the book, has a close relationship with her pig Wilbur, who she saved from being killed at birth when he was the runt of the litter. And in this chapter, we're going to find out that she is hearing all of the dialogue between the animals in this book. Dialogue is the speaking that they do back and forth with each other. And up until now, we weren't sure if Fern could hear the dialogue that we were reading in the book. But she is about to let us know that she can hear the dialogue between the animals. As we read chapter 8, I hope that you will listen to why does Mrs. Arble worry about Fern, and is Mr. Arble worried about Fern hearing what animals say, why or why not. Mr. and Mrs. Arble are Fern's parents. That's Fern's last name is Arble. And I hope that you'll think about those questions as we read chapter 8 of Charlotte's Web. A talk at home. On Sunday morning, Mr. and Mrs. Arble and Fern were sitting at the breakfast in the kitchen. Avery had finished and was upstairs looking for his slingshot. "Did you know that Uncle Homer's goslings had hatched?" asked Fern. "How many?" asked Mr. Arble. "7," replied Fern. "There were 8 eggs, but 1 egg didn't hatch, and the goose told Templeton she didn't want it anymore, so he took it away." "The goose did what?" asked Mrs. Arble, gazing at her daughter with a queer, worried look. "Told Templeton she didn't want the egg anymore," repeated Fern. "Who is Templeton?" asked Mrs. Arble. "He's the rat," replied Fern. "None of us like him much." "Who's us?" asked Mr. Arble. "Oh, everyone in the barn cellar. Wilbur, and the sheep, and the lambs, and the goose, and the gander, and the goslings, and Charlotte, and me." "Charlotte?" asked Mrs. Arble. "Who's Charlotte?" "She's Wilbur's best friend. She's terribly clever." "What does she look like?" asked Mrs. Arble. "Well," said Fern thoughtfully, "she has 8 legs. All spiders do, I guess." "Charlotte is a spider?" asked Fern's mother. Fern nodded. "A big gray one. She has a web across the top of Wilbur's doorway. She catches flies and sucks their blood. Wilbur adores her." "Does he really?" said Mrs. Arble, rather vaguely. She was staring at Fern with a worried expression on her face. So we're about to find out why Miss Arble, Fern's mother, is worried about her. "Oh yes, Wilbur adores Charlotte," said Fern. "Do you know what Charlotte said when the goslings hatched?" "I haven't the faintest idea." "I haven't the faintest idea," said Mr. Arble. "Tell us." "Well, when the first gosling stuck its head out from under the goose, I was sitting on my stool in the corner, and Charlotte was on her web. She made a speech. She said, 'I'm sure that every one of us here in the barn cellar will be gratified to learn that after 4 weeks of unremitting effort and patience on the part of the goose, she now has something to show for it. Don't you think that was a pleasant thing for her to say? Yes, I do, said Mrs. Arble. And now, Fern, it's time to get ready for Sunday school, and tell Avery to get ready. And this afternoon you can tell me more about what goes on in Uncle Homer's barn. Aren't you spending quite a lot of time there? You go there almost every afternoon, don't you? I like it there, replied Fern. She wiped her mouth and ran upstairs. After she had left the room, Mrs. Arble spoke in a low voice to her husband. I worry about Fern, she said. Did you hear the way she rambled on about the animals, pretending that they talked? Mr. Arble chuckled. Maybe they do talk, he said. I've sometimes wondered. At any rate, don't worry about Fern. She's just got a lively imagination. Kids think they hear all sorts of things. Just the same, I do worry about her, replied Mrs. Arble. I think I shall ask Dr. Dorian about her the next time I see him. He loves Fern almost as much as we do, and I want him to know how queerly she is acting about that pig and everything. I don't think it's normal. You know perfectly well animals don't talk. Mr. Arble grinned. Maybe our ears aren't as sharp as Fern's, he said. What do you think? Why does Mrs. Arble worry about Fern? Is Mr. Arble worried about Fern hearing what animals say? No, he's not. Why not? Why is he not worried? Thank you for coming and reading Chapter 8 of Charlotte's Web with us. And I hope that you will come back for Video 6 to read Chapter 9 of Charlotte's Web with us.